My name is William Kovatch, and I've been a lawyer now for over 20 years. I was the first in my family to become a lawyer. And because of that, since I didn't have a background and my family didn't have a background in law, I knew nothing of the law business when I went into law school, when I was ready to start my career as a lawyer. And, you know, looking back on it after 20 years, had I known more about the law business, it may have affected a lot of the choices I made in my law career. And I'd like to start this series of videos where I explain to people, particularly people who may be prospective law students, people who may be looking to go into the law field and who have no background, who don't know anything about the law business, in order to give you an inside perspective so that you can make the right choices and understand why people are making certain choices and shape your law career so that you can get the most out of it. Today, the topic I want to talk to you about is brand names and why they're so important in the law business. My name is William Kovatch, and I've been a lawyer for over 20 years. I was the first in my family to become a lawyer, and when I went to law school, I knew nothing of the law business. Through this series of videos, I hope to give you some inside information on how the law business works, and maybe help those who may be considering law school on how to shape their career. So today's topic is brand names and why they're so important in the law business. By brand names, I'm not talking like Yves Saint Laurent or Gucci or Pepsi. I'm talking about where you went to law school. University of Chicago, Temple, Harvard University, where you go to law school, and also maybe where you served as an associate in a law firm. If you served as a law clerk, what judges you served as a law clerk. All of this matters, and it matters to a great deal. And, you know, let me just tell you my story. We go back, and when I was looking to become a lawyer, the law field is filled with smart, highly educated people. And I believed that because there were so many smart, highly educated people, that these people would be less likely to be influenced and persuaded by something as superficial as a brand name. That people with such intelligence and with such understanding and education would know that just because somebody went to a school that's not a top-tier school, that that person could still be a brilliant lawyer, that that person can still have all the skills necessary to successfully argue and work out in a law career. I was wrong. Turns out that in the law field, where you go to school, the brand name is immensely important. In particular, it is immensely important for certain career paths, and specifically, the career path that I'm talking about. If you are going into the law field and your goal is to get the high-paying job with the big law firm, then where you go to school, and in fact, shaping your entire law school career to fit a certain mold is extremely important, because those law firms will not take a chance on a law student who strays and doesn't go through the path that they expect. My story, way back 1994, 1995. It's when I was looking to go into law school. At that time, I had an idea of what I wanted to do with my law career. This was very close after the fall of the Soviet Union. 1991 was the Second Russian Revolution and the time that the Soviet Union fell apart. In my mind, right around that time, I started thinking, hey, this is an opportunity. There's probably going to be a chance to create some business deals or some connections between Russia and the United States. So I started learning more about Russia. I started learning the Russian language. I started learning more about Russian history. I started learning more about the Russian culture. And when I came to law school, it was my goal to study international trade and international business. Now, I am originally from Philadelphia. I was a Pennsylvania resident at the time. And one of the schools that I was looking at, in fact, there were several schools I looked at. I, of course, applied to Harvard thinking, yeah, there's no way I'm going to get in because, Harvard's reputation, but I applied anyway. I applied to the University of Pennsylvania. I applied to Temple. I applied to Villanova. I was accepted by Temple, and I was put on the waiting list for the University of Pennsylvania. And having been accepted to Temple, I was curious. I wanted to see, all right, if I were to be accepted by Penn, what would be my better choice? And I did a lot of research. Temple, at least within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Temple has a great reputation for actually preparing law students for a career in the law field. It's one of my complaints about law school in general, that you don't really get the preparation and the skills needed to be a good lawyer. Do you get book knowledge? Sure, you get the book knowledge. Do you get knowledge on how do you handle an interview with a combatant client? No. Do you get knowledge on how do you draft up an answer to a divorce complaint? No. You don't get that in law school. That's all stuff you get outside of law school. That bothers me. Even though you get a decent education on what the law is, you do not get an education in how to use that knowledge to actually practice law. Temple was different. Temple was known for having programs to give you practical training, in particular with trial advocacy. And in my case, Temple had a known program with respect to international law, or as they call it, transnational law. And because Temple had such a good program, at the time, it had a good reputation with respect to the Jessup International Moot Court Competition, I was attracted. I liked the idea. I wanted to be part of that. That's the career I wanted. Later, I was actually accepted by Penn. And I did the research. And when I did the research, the conclusion I came to was that Penn did not have the same program as Temple. It didn't have a program that concentrated on international law. It didn't have the reputation of preparing somebody to become a lawyer. Now, Penn was the brand name. Penn was the name that everybody knew because it's an Ivy League school. Penn was also far more expensive than Temple. All of that went into my decision-making process, and I decided I wanted to go to Temple. Now, looking back on it, do I regret this decision? Not at all, because I prefer the way my career spun out rather than if I had gone through the typical career path. Because up front, I've got an issue with the large law firm culture. We'll talk about that in later videos, but I have an issue with that. So coming out of law school, I did do a clerkship. In fact, I did a clerkship in the District of Columbia with the DC Court of Appeals, not the federal court, what would be the state court level. Nonetheless, I was in Washington, which was one of the cities you want to be in if you want to get involved in international trade, Washington or New York City. I was in Washington. I was able to use my time in Washington to research firms that concentrated on international trade law. And my first job outside of my clerkship was with a small firm that focused entirely on international trade, which at the time, 1998, 1999, that's what the field was dominated by, small law firms that focused entirely on international trade. So right out of my clerkship, I worked for a small four-man law firm. It was concentrating on the area I wanted to be in, which was international trade law. But the thing with working with a small law firm, a four-man law firm, is that you're very much dependent on your boss's ability to keep clients. And in my situation, my boss lost his biggest client to bankruptcy within the first 6 months of my being there. So I was being laid off because my boss no longer had the work. and or at least the work to justify for lawyers. He actually laid off 2 of us. Now, it was because that he and his senior associate had connections within the Department of Commerce that I landed an interview. And one of the things to keep in mind is that your brand name doesn't mean as much if what you're doing is going into a government position. And a government job is a good job. There are stable benefits. And don't believe the hype out there that people who work for the government are just people who can't get jobs anywhere else. No. My time at the Department of Commerce, almost everybody I worked with, my client, who was the client office in the International Trade Administration, they were all smart, capable people. They were all dedicated, smart, capable people. I do not subscribe to this myth that government workers are lazy at all. That was not my experience in the least bit. But after a few years, I had a young family, and, there's that tendency of, okay, I'm making a decent salary here, but I could be making much more in the private sector. So I tested the waters. I went to see if I could land a job with one of the large law firms. And that's when it really hit me that because I did not have the brand name, because I did not go to the University of Pennsylvania, I was at the bottom of the list in being considered for big law firm jobs. That's just fact of life, how it works. Now, again, this makes very little sense. Another story. When I was working with the government, one of the tasks that I would do, I would help interview candidates for jobs in our department, in our office. And I remember one time in particular, we got a candidate that all of the higher ups were very high on. And, oh, look, he's got this degree from Harvard and all these remarkable achievements. Give him an interview and let us know what you think. I interviewed him. He did not come across at all at being competent or knowing what he was doing. And I reported that to my higher-ups. Just because he had a Harvard name. They were surprised. But he went to Harvard. Just because you have a Harvard name doesn't mean you're going to be a good lawyer. But here's the thing. Harvard and alumni from Harvard very much have an interest in perpetuating the appearance that Harvard is such a wonderful super school and that everyone who graduates from Harvard is a brilliant lawyer. They have a stake in making sure that myth continues. And because of that, if you go to Harvard, Harvard alumni will make sure you do not fail. Doesn't matter how incompetent you are. Doesn't matter how bad a lawyer you are. If you've gone to Harvard, Harvard alumni will make sure you do not fail. You will get a job and you will get paid. Now, you may not rise to the top, but you'll get a job and you get paid. There's more to it than that. Let's say that your goal is to become a federal judge. Maybe you got your eyes set on the Supreme Court, right? And they need lawyers for the Supreme Court, right? Okay, well, number one, you have to start off with a law school and a name brand law school. Then you have to get to a clerkship. So you need to find a judge who will hire you out of law school to serve as their law clerk. Once you're done your clerkship, you will need to go to a top tier law firm. You need somebody to hire you in that law firm. Then you're going to need to start rubbing elbows with a politician and start getting that politician to float your name up when it comes to appointment to the bench. Then you're going to have to get appointed. And then once you've been appointed to the right court, there are feeder circuits in the federal court system. If you're appointed to the D.C. Circuit, for example, you're much more likely to be considered for the Supreme Court than somebody who's, say, on the Fourth Circuit. It's just how it works. Now, let's go backwards. How do you get that clerkship? You get the clerkship because, they might not say this out there. I'll tell you this. There are judges who may have gone to a law school like Harvard who will almost exclusively make sure they hire a Harvard alumni as their clerk. right? You serve for a year. That's what a clerkship is. You serve for a year under a judge. You learn how the courts work, right? And there are judges who are from Harvard who will almost exclusively hire law students from Harvard to be their clerks. So you've got that in. Then, when you get to being hired by a law firm, you're going to have partners who are from Harvard who need to make sure that they maintain their school's reputation. So they're going to lobby to hire the Harvard candidate, right? And then, because there's this little Harvard mafia out there, you are going to have politicians who rose to their position because they were part of the Harvard mafia and because they made their Harvard connections, and Harvard people made sure they were the ones who rose to the top when it came to being nominated for office. And, oh, you have the Harvard name. I'm going to make sure that you get attention when it comes to being appointed as a judge. And then if you are a judge on the Supreme Court and you're from Harvard, you're going to be more likely, number one, if you're going to choose law clerks, when you choose law clerks to work for you, you're going to be more likely to choose somebody from Harvard. So that's how you get this incestuous existence where Harvard and other of these name brand law schools, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, University of Chicago, Penn, get this reputation of being such a great school, and I'm only going to hire a Harvard graduate, and I'm only going to hire somebody from Penn, and I'm only going to hire somebody. It's all incestuous, and it's all just based on name brand. And that's the deal. If your career goal is to go to a big firm, make tons of money, and then maybe springboard that either into politics or into a judicial clerkship, yep, name brand means absolutely everything. And you need to make sure that's part of your consideration when you're choosing your law firm. Now, we talked about name brands. Later on in other videos, I'm going to talk to you about how the business itself works. And I'm going to tell you why it is I came to the conclusion that law firm life was definitely not for me. In particular, if you want to have a family and actually know your family, don't join a large law firm. So we'll talk more about that in future videos to come. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. If there are any topics you would like me to address in the future, please let me know in the comments below. Now, I don't like talking about this, but I am currently disabled because of complications following cancer surgery. If you're feeling generous, I'll have a link to my PayPal account in the description below. Thank you.